Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this AMPO webinar. We've got a couple of folks drifting in yet from the waiting room. But in the meantime, I will introduce myself. My name is Ellen Zaviska. I serve as Transportation Planning Manager for AMPO. So glad to have you all with us today for this webinar brought to you by our Core Products Interest Group. We have 7 different interest groups here at AMPO, and they help us put on a series of webinars throughout the year and share great practices from across the country. If you're interested in serving as a leader for one of these interest groups next year, we'll have a call for leadership in the fall or late summer, and that will be open to any staff of an AMPO member. So I hope you'll consider that. I've got one housekeeping slide before we get going. I also want to mention that there's a lot going on in the transportation world. There's a lot of concerns about things that are going on, and we've had a couple of listening sessions here at AMPO just to hear, what you guys are hearing, what your concerns are, try to answer questions that we can. We had another one of those earlier this week. We've got another one coming up in a couple of weeks, and I will share the registration link in the chat for those who want to attend that next listening session. And also mention that we've been sending out a lot of emails about what's going on. So if you are not getting those and you're interested, whether you're an AMPO member or not, you can share your email address in the chat, and I will get you on that email list so that as we learn about policy stuff and other things that are of interest, we can share that with you. So with that, one housekeeping slide. Ask you to please keep your mic muted while our speakers are doing their thing. However, you are welcome to submit questions or comments at any point in the chat box. And there will be time for Q&A between speakers or at the end. And then we do record the meeting. We share notes afterward and slides with our membership. And I'll ask you to please add your MPO name to your Zoom handle. Someone has asked to start the AI companion. I guess we can do that unless someone has an objection. Let me know and I'll turn it off if you do. And finally, I will introduce our moderator. Helen Wiles is a member of that leadership team for our Core Products Interest Group. She works at the Dover-Kent MPO in Delaware. She, in addition to doing public outreach for Dover-Kent, she's had a very interesting career in media, radio, advertising, marketing. She's a writer. She's been at non-for-profits. She's one of our more interesting MPO world people here. And so we're glad to have her moderating this webinar. And I will turn it over to Helen to introduce our topic and our speakers for today.
All right. Hello, everyone. So glad you're here. Today, we're going to be learning about strategies to encourage meaningful public participation. That includes face-to-face participation. We have talked a great deal over the past few years about lots of ways to get people more engaged online or more engaged virtually. And so we wanted to make sure that we included face-to-face participation in this particular webinar. So we're going to start with a real quick poll question. I will launch that, and everybody feel free to answer. And I'm watching everything happen in real time, so things are going forwards and backwards, and very exciting. And so this question is about in-person engagement and how you feel you do as far as your organization does. And it's interesting, 2%, it seems, has come in saying very good. The majority says not so good, 36. 21% says pretty good, 21% says poor, and 19% says it depends on the topic. So that gives us a little bit of an indication that we're kind of all in the same boat when it comes to in-person stuff. So here it is. And I'll give you guys a minute to take a look at that. And then we will. So public engagement in transportation planning is crucial for addressing the needs of local communities. So today we've got two experts who are going to share valuable strategies for fostering meaningful participation, including tips for planning and promoting meetings and events that inspire public involvement in the transportation planning process. So our first speaker is Melissa Malora from the South Jersey TPO. She is the public outreach coordinator at the South Jersey Transportation Planning Organization. She has made significant contributions over the past 8 years. She has a degree in communication studies and writing arts. Um, she brings a wealth of expertise to her role. She is responsible for a broad range of critical tasks, including public outreach, communication strategies, social media management, and website maintenance. Recently, her responsibilities have expanded to include overseeing Title VI activities and to ensure that equity is seamlessly integrated into all of their initiatives. Outside of work, Melissa enjoys traveling, spending quality time with her family and pets, and exploring new hobbies such as cooking and pottery. So, Melissa, take it away.
Perfect. Let me just share my screen. Okay, so good afternoon and thank you for having me. Discussions like this one on public outreach, especially in the MPO realm, are essential. I know for us here at SJTPO, we've been disheartened in the past by the lack of public engagement at times, especially if we've tried something new and it didn't work out. And then other times we're completely blown away by the level of involvement. And I've come to realize that that's truly the nature of public outreach. Not every effort to engage the public is going to be a home run, and that's perfectly okay. It's all a learning experience and an opportunity to evaluate and strive for improvement. So with that said, for today's presentation, I'm going to provide an overview of our public outreach process while also hitting on some of our misses and our successes. So before I begin, I just want to provide a little bit of background about SJTPO. We were formed in 1993 and we're one of 3 MPOs in New Jersey. We serve Southern New Jersey specifically, including Atlantic, Cape May, Cumberland, and Salem counties. Our year-round population is roughly 590,000, but then during the summer tourism season, our population skyrockets to 1.7 million. And then much like other MPOs across the country, we provide access to federal transportation funding. We serve as a technical resource for our member counties, and then we promote state and federal planning priorities in the region. I also want to touch on our regional vision, which was recently endorsed as part of our recently approved RTP, also known as a Regional Transportation Plan. And that specific plan is called Forward 2050. So our vision was a transportation system based on regional collaboration that moves people and goods in a safe and efficient manner, inclusive of all modes and users. We do have a document that guides our public involvement process. It's called our Public Involvement Plan, also known as the PIP. We refer back to the PIP anytime that we're starting a public comment period, mainly because it outlines the rules that we'll follow and it identifies methods that we could use to ensure that our planning efforts include the public to the greatest reasonable degree. A part of the PIP is our accessibility brochure, and this document summarizes our efforts to ensure that our members of the public can fairly participate in our projects and our programs, and it also mentions the accommodations that we provide. For example, we aim to provide adequate and timely notice of our public meetings and other activities. We have found that advertising 12 days in advance of a meeting or an activity is best. And we've come to this determination based off of the need for translation and interpretation or other auxiliary services. So we actually have a firm under contract to provide our translation and interpretation. This is not something that we can do in-house because we're such a small staff. So we do need some time to get those requests in and make sure that they're covered adequately. I will say currently that we use the firm to translate materials into Spanish, which is the limited English proficiency language of the region. And then one other critical point to note is that the accessibility brochure acknowledges that when we host meetings, they'll be in venues that are accessible to individuals with disability, but also reachable by public transit. In certain instances, not all of our region is covered by transit, so that's not something we can guarantee, but it is something that we strive to meet. Moving on, I will say that making materials visual is very important to us, and we've opted to use Canva because it's a relatively low-cost platform. We just recently renewed, and it's roughly $120 a year. We use Canva for a variety of different reasons. On the screen, you can see several different options. We mainly use infographics in our newsletter. And then we use for our public meetings, for our social media posts, we use Canva as well. And then we use it for flyers, for comment periods and public meetings. You can also use Canva for presentations. That's what I put together. That's how I put together today's presentation. And then I just exported it as a PowerPoint slide. And then I would say it's a very versatile platform. It's user-friendly, much more than Adobe products, which I've used in the past. Social media advertising is something that we've dabbled with, and I would say that I highly recommend it. It's quick and it's effective, and you can increase your visibility. You can also target specific audiences based on demographics, interests, and even behaviors. And again, it's another easy platform to use. All you have to do is set a budget, set a duration for how long you want to advertise, and you're pretty much good to go. I will say that you'll want to be thoughtful about what you promote. So meaning you don't want to promote solely a static visual. Instead, you'll want to have a visual component with an actionable item, such as linking to a survey. We've done both in the past, and having a visual along with an actionable item tends to perform well, meaning that you get more involvement and a more significant reach. We've also explored when it's best to hold meetings and where it's best to hold meetings. So during a previous PIP update, we actually created a survey to understand what times would work best for people. And then based on those results, we held meetings at different times of the day. One time of day that people selected, which surprised us, was noon. But we went with it, so we scheduled meetings during that time. And it turns out that that time is not generally favored by members of the public. Instead, it was favored by those who are already invested in our work, so professionals like consultants and whatnot. So in hindsight, maybe the survey should not have been anonymous, or we could have asked a clarifying question, such as, what is your relationship to SJTPO? In terms of scheduling meetings, we try to avoid holidays and current events, but certain documents like our RTP, it falls in the November, December, and January months. So we can't help but hold meetings during awkward times, I'll say. But when we're holding meetings during that time, we understand that our involvement might be limited. We also host meetings in a variety of spaces. I'll say that we used to hold meetings in our local city hall because it was centrally located here in Vineland, and it was near a transit stop. And for a while there, it was perfectly fine, but then they implemented security measures, which would not be daunting to us, but we could see how for members of the public it could be daunting or a deterrent. Luckily, we moved into a larger space and we have a dedicated conference room, and it's a welcoming space, we feel, and there's also a transit stop. But unfortunately, our in-person attendance has not been what we had hoped. Rather, we find most success when we stagger our meetings throughout all 4 counties. So it takes a little bit more work for us, especially as we can't pay for a meeting space. So instead we have to go to like community centers or libraries. So essentially going to where the public already is. And as an aside, I'll just say, think about parking. You don't want to make parking too far away if you can, if that's something that you can, if you have a hold of or whatnot. But so don't make it too far away. Try to make it free, and you should be good to go. Recently, we were under the assumption that we couldn't use federal funds for public involvement incentives. And then we became aware of a USDOT publication that made us rethink that topic. And if you're at all interested, I created a QR code that links directly to the document that I'm speaking about. So when we read over this document and, it kind of got our minds thinking, maybe we could offer incentives. We went to NJDOT and other federal representatives, and they said that we can actually use federal funds for incentives, but the public involvement activities have to be approved on a case-by-case basis, and the activities have to be necessary and reasonable. So the type of incentives that we started offering include light refreshments, childcare services, and financial incentives. Again, this is something new to us, so we don't have it all figured out. But what I can say is that financial incentives seems to be the most beneficial. And I say that because during our last RTP update, again, that was in November, December, and January, we had a scenario planning survey that was administered, and we offered an incentive of 4 $100 gift cards. And by the close of the survey, we had over 690, so close to 700 respondents, which is, for us, is unheard of most of the time. We did have a consultant administer the survey through our social media and our website, and they actually verified that all of the responses were in fact true people. I will say with technology and how advanced it has become, that bots or scammers could find your survey or whatnot and take advantage of the financial incentives. So that's just important to note. When holding public meetings, we tend to follow these 6 best practices. The first being to hold practice runs before the meetings, and that's simply so that way we can run through our materials and make sure that everyone knows their place and when to talk and whatnot, and just make sure everything flows. We also tend to offer a virtual option to all of our public meetings, given the size of our region. So essentially we hold hybrid meetings because we always have an in-person option. So the virtual option is not meant to overpower in person. It's supposed to complement it. I will say that we are our own technical support during our public meetings, again, given our size. So we have to be extremely comfortable with the technology that we use. And at the start of most public meetings, we preface that technology works when it wants to, and sometimes it doesn't work. So we always say, please stick with us if we run into any difficulties. Along with this, we also have co-meeting organizers and co-facilitators, again, just in case anything goes wrong, but also to help monitor chats. And then a few years ago, we opted to purchase directional arrows and informational boards just to help people orient to different meeting locations. Again, because we do go throughout the county, and even in our building, we're on the second floor. So sometimes if you're walking into the office, it can be a little daunting. Do you go straight? Do you go right? So just helping to orient people. And then the last one is something that we implemented during COVID, which is preparing questions ahead of time and having sort of an answer prepared. Because during each of our public meetings, we have 10 to 15 minutes of dedicated time for members of the public to ask us questions. So after hearing us talk, they might not have questions right away, but if we get the conversation started, they might feel more comfortable joining in. In terms of virtual platforms, we decided to go with GoTo, and GoTo includes both GoToMeeting and GoToWebinar. We also have the toll-free option, just in case anyone decides to call in. They're not incurring that cost. We mainly use GoToMeeting because it allows members of the public and staff to interact freely, meaning they can mute themselves, they can unmute, whereas GoToWebinar, most of everyone joining is on mute, and it kind of limits interaction or interference. We mainly used GoToWebinar during COVID when we had an increase in public attendance, and we were new to hosting virtual meetings, and we were sort of nervous that disruptions might be possible. But since that initial interest has died down, we have gone with most of our meetings are held using GoToMeeting. So we purchased a meeting owl from Owl Labs, I want to say about a year and a half ago. It's a really unique tool. It's very compact, but essentially what it is it's a smart video conferencing camera, and it captures a 360-degree video of the room, and it has an enhanced audio. I am not using it today. I'm just on my laptop. I will say that there was an instance during our last RTP meeting where it did malfunction, meaning that it failed to turn to whoever was speaking during the public meeting. Again, that was not something that we were anticipating, but we were able to correct it given that our executive director, she didn't have a speaking portion in the meeting. So she physically had to turn the meeting owl, but we worked through it. And even with that issue, we would highly recommend it. It ended up being a software issue. We just had to update it and make one minor tweak to a setting. And even some of our municipalities have purchased it because of seeing how we run our meetings. I will say we're also interested in implementing other virtual tools. The ones on this slide are some that we're interested in. We haven't made any sort of determination. The first is Community Remarks. It's a survey mapping tool that allows the public to access a map, plot a comment, and then continue on with their day. And we would probably use this for our tip updating process. The next one is Convio. I know as an MPO, we're federally required to have different documents, and those documents have to have a public comment period. So since our documents are mainly PDF, this tool turns them into social documents to collect feedback and then spark action. And then the last one that we're interested in is Slido. It offers live polls, Q&As, quizzes, and word clouds. And we would use this during this discussion period of our public meetings. If anyone in today's audience has any experience using these tools, I'm open ears. So please feel free to leave something in the chat. Or that brings me to my last slide. You can email me. My email is right on the slide. And I greatly appreciate you listening and having me here today. And I'd be willing to answer any questions.
Okay. So from the chat, we have how many people typically attend your in-person meetings?
It varies. I would say if it's a document that we're updating, so one of our core documents like our TIP, our PIP, we don't hold a public meeting for our UPWP, but you get what I'm trying to say. Most of the time it's less than 10, but if we have a project specific, so like a bikeway project, I guess we could have anywhere from 10, 20. It really all depends on the nature of the meeting.
And how long do you boost your Facebook posts?
So we do a few different rounds depending on how long the public comment period is. I would say that we vary again. So sometimes given our budget, we don't always have a significant budget. I think for the RTP, it was roughly $100. So we boosted it for a week 2 times. And I will say that we've posted in both English and Spanish.
And for that, so that's like $50 a time.
Yes.
How many additional people do you tend to reach with that money?
Well, again, it depends on your parameters that you set. So for our region, we didn't want to hit Philadelphia, but we also wanted to hit the shore points. So it was roughly 30 miles. So it really depends on the parameters. I will say the more money that you spend and the longer you have the boosting going on, the more reach you'll get. But I think, let me just go back to, I won't pull up my slide again, but I did have a screenshot. I want to see. So for the RTP, one of the posts that we boosted, which I showed on my Canvas slide, it had 74 likes, 4 comments, and 4 shares. And again, that was just doing the boosting for roughly a week. So that's a significant amount of likes for us.
And let's see. So could you give an example of how you may have used a new tool or strategy for engagement for your long range plan specifically?
So I would say, I don't know if this is specifically what this person is looking for, but I will say that previously, we've always managed our RTP on our own, but having a consultant on board and doing the scenario planning aspect. So having a survey, we've never really offered a survey during the RTP. It's always been, we're preparing the document in-house and then we hold a public comment period and we're basically like, hey, we're looking for comments. So I think having a survey, an actionable item rather than it being open-ended was a little bit more helpful. And again, we didn't boost for the RTP, we didn't boost for the survey, but simply having the incentive and getting 696 responses was something worthwhile for us.
All right. Thank you, Melissa. We've got some more questions, but we're going to stop right now and so that we can go to our second speaker. And then if there's more time at the end, we'll do that. So Melissa, if you could stop sharing your screen, and
I
Ellen,
I put
if
up Dawn's.
yeah, I'm waiting for that. Do.
There you go.
All right. Dawn Voss is from Wilmapco, which is the Wilmington Area Planning Council. She is the outreach coordinator for the MPO. She is responsible for coordinating, promoting the agency's outreach events and exhibit tables, publishing newsletters, press releases, maintaining the agency's website and social media. She also acts as a liaison to Safe Kids Delaware, Safe Routes to School, and the Air Quality Partnership. Dawn attended the university where she earned a BA in English Literature. Here is Dawn Voss. Dawn.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Helen. It's nice to be here. Yes, I am Dawn Voss from Wilmapco, and let me share my screen. One moment. There we are. I am the outreach, as Helen said, I am the outreach coordinator for Wilmapco. And Wilmapco is the MPO for Cecil County, Maryland, and Newcastle County, Delaware. We have about 675 people that we serve in our region with 9 staff members. And I just want to let you know that all of the information for this presentation was taken from our public participation process, which can be found in our public participation plan on our website at wilmapco.org/PPP. I was invited to discuss in-person workshops. I wanted to point out, though, that is one tool in the workshop in the toolbox for public participation in person. Certainly, the workshop is a very formal place to have to exchange information, but we also encourage everyone to look at going to events like community days and street festivals, or perhaps try your hand at mobile engagement, where you might pop up at in front of a library, in front of a grocery store, maybe as there's a summer concert series in a park. It's a good way to reach people who perhaps would not think to go to a workshop, and you may spark some more interest in participation in the transportation planning process. Okay, as I said, there are multiple ways to reach your audience. We usually start to figure out what we want to do by discussing it with our steering committee. The steering committee is really plugged into the community that we are working with. So it's a lot of times it's stakeholders, community leaders, business owners. So we will start early in the process asking them what's the best way to get in touch with people, what's a good location, a comfortable location that people would be willing to come out and meet with us. Of course, the meeting would need to be accessible, so we do try to make sure that our meetings are in the community where the project's taking place, that it is accessible via multiple modes of transportation. We like to make it walkable when possible. It's certainly on a bus route. It needs to be ADA accessible, of course, and we try to keep it in a trusted location, meaning we do try to avoid government agencies, government buildings, religious centers. We lean towards libraries, community centers, and schools whenever possible. Echoing what Melissa had discussed, trying to figure out a convenient time is really helpful in getting people to participate. It removes a barrier as far as being able to get to the event. A lot of times what we'll do for our weeknight events is we'll have them span the late afternoon into early evening hours, say like 4 o'clock, 4:30 to maybe 7:30, and do the presentation twice, so that if someone's on their way to work in the evening, they might be able to hit like a 4:30 presentation, where people who are getting off and coming home may be more able to hit a 5:30 or 6 o'clock presentation. We also have been known to set up a full-fledged workshop in a park on a Saturday if that's what it takes. You really need to go where the people are. and make it easy for them to attend. We also, now that we have a little ease up on being able to serve refreshments, we try to put some refreshments out. It also, when people are coming home from work, they may be a little hungry. They might have picked up their children from school or from sports practice. So it kind of helps people be able to stay a little longer and participate, maybe stay for the presentation. As Melissa was talking, we also advertise activities for children. We've been known to have straight up childcare, but a lot of times it's enough to just have a little activity for the kids at the event. And we've set up a table with crowns and coloring books, and we actually put together, sometimes to get a little feedback from the kids, we'll sometimes put out these brochures that we make. These a couple of pages out of a four-page brochure that we put together that gives kids a chance to write down what do they feel is important, or where do they like to play, or where do they like to go in the neighborhood. And with a hybrid option, I put a question mark next to it with our presentation, because during COVID, of course, we did a lot of online workshops, a lot of remote meetings, and they were very successful. But when COVID was over, we tried to do some hybrid with a lot of the technology, setting up a lot of the technology, having staffing to keep an eye on chat, making sure people could participate, and just wasn't doing the we just weren't getting the feedback that we would like to get. I mean, we go out, we want to give the information, but a lot of times we're also trying to get information from the people who are attending. And we found that people just were not participating at the level that we'd like. So what we find is that we can just as easily get the feedback that we need by posting everything on the website the next day. If you can't make it, and we do also send out emails and advertise on the homepage of our website that if you didn't make it to the workshop, we'd love to still hear from you. We have the meeting presentation slides up. We record the presentation and try and post that. We put up all the boards, and then this example has a comment sheet, but if there's a survey, we'll have the survey up. And I didn't fit it into the graphic, but we also have, of course, a telephone number and email address for the principal planner for the project, so that if anyone wants to call in, have a conversation about the project, ask questions, it's certainly available. And we have found that this has been a pretty effective tool as far as getting people to participate if they were unable to come in person. Now, with the advertising aspect, we do start our advertising a little earlier than Melissa. We do have a 30-day notice period that we try to stick to. We try to connect a couple of times over that 30-day period, but we don't want to connect so many, so we don't want to put out so much information that people end up unsubscribing. So we tend to go along with the invitation, save the date kind of thing, then a reminder, and then day of the event, we'll send out a see you tonight to kind of encourage people to, yeah, please do show up tonight. We also use Canva. I do recommend Canva. We put out all of our graphics from there. We try to brand each project that we do so that people, as it comes up on their social media feed, or if they happen to see something out in the world in their emails, it's a consistent look. Like, for example, this one is in Elkton, which is a city in Cecil County. It kind of mirrors the Maryland state flag colors a little bit, but everything we put out, whether it's a flyer or something on our website or something on social media, all has a consistent look so that people can easily find it when they're scrolling through their social media. It kind of is a branding tool. Digital marketing, kind of our bread and butter as far as getting the word out to people. Of course, all roads lead to our website. We certainly try to drive as much traffic to our website as we can. Each project that we have does have its own web page, so all of the information can be found all in one place. And the home page does have a what's new section that will link to the pages and let everybody know if there's an upcoming workshop, if there's an active survey, if we're in a public comment period, so to make sure that everybody is aware. With emails, we do have we do use an email marketing platform. We use Constant Contact. It's a good place where we are able to have individual email lists for the individual projects. We have a sign up form so where people can add themselves to the list to receive updates for any individual projects. And I am generally at the front door at every workshop with sign-in sheets encouraging people to give us their email addresses to sign up so they can hear about the next survey, the next workshop, so that they can keep up with what's new in the project. Of course, social media, you can see that I do have Nextdoor here. Although Meta is great for scheduling and does still reach a lot of people, I did find that some people have dropped off of Facebook, but they still like to know what's going on in their neighborhood. And I do put the social media posts up on Nextdoor as well. We also have a digital newsletter that we use that goes out monthly, and we advertise all of our workshops and surveys, other points of contact in our digital newsletter. And we also encourage our partners and the other stakeholders, if they have digital newsletters, that they also share information through their newsletters. Now, we also find that we have pockets of population in our region that are what we determine are tech deserts, which means that they lack adequate access to computers or adequate access to internet connection. So we do still rely on non-digital methods when we are working in an area where the community doesn't have good access to the internet. So if we determine that there is a neighborhood or two or three that don't have access, we will still drop a postcard or send a trifold mailer through USPS. We will do hard copy newsletters and send them out. We will leave stacks of flyers at the library, or sometimes at community centers. They'll have information tables where we can leave stacks of flyers. We even have in some instances, we even do door-to-door surveys if people just are not able to respond to our online surveys. There is a neighborhood in Wilmington, which is the largest city in Newcastle County. They are just the whole neighborhood, the whole region of the project was a tech desert. So we paid a stipend to some community members to go door to door to get surveys, and it ended up being a very successful way to get feedback from that community. We also work with our partners and stakeholders to try to encourage them to spread the word. We find it's very effective if you can get local legislators to get on board with you. You can see in our graphic that Dee Durham is one of our Newcastle County Council members. She had shared this post from our Facebook page. When we start a new project, we will oftentimes get in touch with the staff members of local legislators to let them know what we're doing, to encourage them to participate. We will offer a legislative briefing to get the legislators on board. They oftentimes have a pretty large following on social media, or they may also send out newsletters themselves, and they have a pretty broad audience for the area that you're working in. So we find that we do get pretty good participation when we get the legislators on board. We also will, again, try to get together with Chamber of Commerce, get them to include our information in their newsletters. A lot of tagging our partners and friends on social media. And if we are putting an event on, say, Facebook, if we are working, say, with one of the counties, it's also nice to co-host the event, and that way it goes out to everybody who follows them, as well as our followers. Okay, and when we talk about choosing a method, whether it's digital or non-digital, if you want to do email, or if you think people would respond to mailings, we take a look at the community characteristics. It starts with the steering committee, but we can also look at the area in general from the demographics that we get from the census, so that we can we use multiple methods to get to people, but we also will hammer home things that are more geared towards the audience that we know are living in the area that we're serving for any particular project, whether it's the tech deserts that I've talked about, or low literacy, or whether it's limited English proficiency. We have had our challenges with getting people with limited English proficiency to come to our general workshops. The two languages that we tend to run into mostly in our region are, of course, Spanish and Chinese. So what we have started doing is really going to the cultural organizations and cultural centers that that will give us some suggestions on best ways to reach people. We ask them to spread the word, make announcements. We do our advertising. We have bilingual advertising. We also do use a firm to do some of our translating, and also to provide us with translators, interpreters for all of the events. And at times, it just ends up being the easiest thing is to do a separate meeting. You'll see in this picture, we kind of had to pivot from our rule of thumb of trying to avoid religious centers. We went to a church where we knew that there was a large population, a large population of Spanish-speaking Spanish-speaking people to go and do a pop-up. We asked permission. All the boards are in Spanish. We had multiple interpreters there, and it ended up being a very successful way to get some feedback from the community. One of the other things we do at our workshops to kind of get a feel for how successful we are at reaching all segments of the community within the project area is we put up a map with the project area outlined, and then we ask for a little interaction with the people coming in. Could you give us take a little sticky dot and show us where you live, where you work, where you play, and that gives us a sense of when the meeting is done. Is there any neighborhoods that stick out that we really did not have any participation from that neighborhood? And it gives us a chance for the next for the next workshop or the next survey to kind of take a look at what about that neighborhood might encourage the people to come out and participate. Part of our public participation plan is also to get the youth perspective. So we do offer a separate parallel process. We reach out to schools, community centers, to find out if there's a way for us to be able to do a pop-up. You'll see in the top picture there, we did a pop-up at Elkton High School with a table and a bowl of candy and a couple of boards to do some dot polling and a map to draw on. That one we incentivized the kids with, if you participate, you'll be entered into a drawing to receive a gift card. We also have at times had parents bring kids out for a kid-centric meeting before the regular workshop to be able to do some activities with the kids, find out where do you ride your bike, do you feel safe, where do you walk to, where would you go if you could, and it's a good way to get the kids involved. And again, our public participation plan is available on our website at willmapgo.org/PPP. This is my contact information. Please feel free to get in touch with me anytime if you'd like to discuss anything moving forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dawn. So questions. Hold on, let me just. All right. So how has the public responded to mailers and the door-to-door thing?
Again, that was in areas where we considered tech deserts. So trying to get in touch with people there was via more the digital methods was very challenging. We had a very good response for the door-to-door. That again was a very small neighborhood in Wilmington, geographically small. And what I think was really made that successful is not only was it door-to-door in a place where technology was a real challenge, we did pay a stipend to local neighborhood people who were local to the neighborhood, and they went out and conducted the survey. So it was very comfortable to see people from the neighborhood come and take the survey. As far as the mailer goes, we have found that we really do try to drill down to only use the mailers to neighborhoods where that we have identified as tech deserts. And I'm not going to say necessarily we get a ton of people to come in person, but I do believe that when the surveys and the comments come in, we are able to get people who are willing to make some more comments, a little more participation from those areas.
So speaking of the tech deserts, how do you identify a tech desert?
There's information in the census that that will identify whether people have adequate broadband, or whether or not the households generally have computers, or cell phones are do count as a computer. So the numbers can be somewhat skewed, but also steering committee can also give us an idea too of that.
All right. And um, how often do you hold public meetings? And when you utilize childcare for these meetings and events, do you use staff or do you bring in outside help?
When we have had separate childcare where somebody was responsible, like in a separate room, it was staff members. But we have not actually done that in a while. We find that setting up a table with some crowns and the brochure the papers that I shared, and some coloring books. A lot of times, I think the parents and grandparents are more comfortable if the kids are right in the room with you, and so a snack and a coloring book can really go uh, make a big difference in children being able to hang out for a little bit. And
Uh,
our workshops really, for our projects, we generally have 3 to 4 workshops per project. The first workshop is usually one of the hardest ones to get people to come to. That's where it's really helpful to enlist other your partners to get the word out, because it's a visioning workshop where we're asking people to come out and just kind of tell us what where are you finding some trouble spots here? What are your what are your thoughts on the area? Then there's the alternatives that we will bring in to kind of say, we heard that these are the things that are the problems. Here's the alternatives that we can offer. And then we usually do a survey at that point, asking people to vote, like what kind of surveys which alternatives they prefer. Then we'll come in with the recommendations. Sometimes we stop there and then just put the final uh, report out for comment period. And sometimes we will actually do a fourth workshop where we introduce the final report and take comments both in person and over a 30-day period.
all right. Well, thank you, Dawn, very much. And thank you, Melissa, very much. I think this has been a great almost an hour. It has just been very informative. And there were some people who also had some questions. If you guys weren't able to get, if you still have a burning question, you weren't able to get it answered, please repeat it in the chat and we'll take note of them and we'll send them to our moderators or our speakers for answers. And but other than that, thank you both very much. You've both been great, and I'm going to turn it back over to Ellen for the wrap up.
Well, thank you, Helen. I want to share your reduplicate your thanks to Dawn and to Melissa for sharing your great stories with us. And thank you for Helen for pulling this webinar together. As I said at the top, we couldn't put on this webinar series without our volunteer interest group leaders. Helen is one of those folks. And if you're ever interested in becoming part of our interest group leadership, you are welcome to apply, and you are a member, you're welcome to apply for that at the end of the summer when we put out our call for leadership. Again, just a reminder to drop your email in the chat if you want to start getting our policy updates. Please take the survey that I shared in the chat as well, and we will share the slides and notes within a week or two on our membership platform. And thank you so much for joining us. Hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye.